Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is can you believe it, the 19th of December, 2019. Welcome as you come in. I'm Roy Potter, and this isn't really a scheduled one, but I received a request. She will know who she is. On one of my Twitter DMs, asking me to give kind of my take on the status of our country, the condition as we sit right now, and the prognosis of the United States of America. And so, I'm not going to give a glowing rah, rah, rah to what the situation is. As a matter of fact, as you all know, and I get accused of it all the time of being, down. But the fact of the matter is that like I've always said, I'm going to call it as I see it. Now, we are having some problems with the internet connection this morning, so again, what's new about that? So if you notice that it cuts out, I will try to get back on just as quickly as I can. The chat is on, so let's get right to it so you know where I am. I did not prepare for this morning. I think I'm just going to go off the cuff. And before I forget, there's a good possibility I will do a live stream tonight, a nightcap. I didn't really know what I was going to talk about, and a lot of people are wondering what's going on with my weight loss. So we're going to talk about that tonight, okay? If you want to know what's going on there, it's nothing dramatic, anything like that, and I'll talk about it tonight, okay? So tonight at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time, look forward to a nightcap, and we'll be discussing weight loss for those of you who are interested. And I'm not going to give you the particulars about how much I've lost or whatever of that nature, but I think you might find it of some interest to you. So we'll talk about it tonight. I don't want to do it here right now. So 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time, we will do a nightcap tonight. Okay, the status of our country. Well, I don't have to tell you that for all of this time, for the last 3 years, I've been saying that if Trump did not take the gloves off, if he did not seize the initiative and start jailing these people, that they would take us down this road, and that more and more people would be caught up in this net by the communists, I'm going to call them now because that's what they are, the communists, to put us at a disadvantage. They have the institutions. Really, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost waking up too late. I hear, Alex Jones vacillates back and forth. We're doing great. The New World Order's on the run and all that. And then the next time he'll say, dang, we're having problems. This is getting more dangerous all the time. This is the fight for liberty, and you need to wake up and you need to do things. And it just all depends on who you listen to. So, I'm not pretending to have an all-knowledgeable, omniscient understanding of what's going on here. But I'll tell you what, it's not looking good. And you knew I was going to say that, right? The lady who asked me to do this, she's got to know where I'm going to go with this. And it's just the fact. It's just where we are. So let me back up here and say what's going on in my estimation. My estimation is that, see, the communists, we constantly try to associate communism with Russia, even more so than China. You'll hear about the Chinese communists, the Chi-Coms and all that. But in reality, what's pushed almost all of the time is Russia, right? You always hear Russia. And I've talked about why that's the case. We have the neocons are primarily, Trotskyites in their. Oh, that's just great. Anyway, so we associate, because of the Trotskyites and the neocons here, they keep trying to associate communism with Russia, to take the attention off of where that actually came from. Now, yeah, I can talk about Marx and Engels and all that, but I want you to focus on this, and I know most of you already know it. The problem wasn't Russia becoming communist. It was a problem, but why did that happen? Again, the people that planned that and carried it out were from where? New York, Washington, D.C., London. See, we forget that our real enemies really aren't even in Russia. They're just the scapegoat to pull all of this off. So while Nancy Pelosi is sitting there talking about the United States and the Constitution, when just a few weeks back she was trashing it, basically they don't. The DNC doesn't have flags around. They probably will on this thing tonight because they're trying to pretend like they're for the Constitution, and they're the furthest from it. They're subverting it in every possible way. Saul Alinsky tactics. You accuse the other side of what you yourself is doing, and they do it with a straight face, and lying is a Machiavellian thing. The ends justifies the means, whatever it takes. And they've even said that, right? So the real enemy, when they keep pointing at Russia, it isn't Russia, because Russia is not even communist anymore. And they don't have, 800, 900 bases around the world? Yeah, they're interested in securing the area and the territories and things around their own country. I mean, don't we do the same? Aren't we concerned? Well, maybe not lately. We're letting this insurrection happen in Mexico, for instance, and it's being fueled by the CIA. The drug war takes down the Mexican government, puts them in power, lets Pelosi have a kickback power there, and they're taking our government down at the same time and causing all these deaths and all this destruction. Well, this is all part of it, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the point is that this constant pointing at Russia is trying to say they're trying to still say that they're the communists, and they're not. Okay, they're really not. The communists reside in New York, Washington D.C., and in London. That's where they are, and some people would even say the Vatican. That's my take on where things are. We're in a lot of trouble. Everybody's saying, oh, the plan, Trump's got this, he knows what he's doing. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't fight a war and constantly lose territory. You can't do it. If you can't seize and hold territory, you're going to lose. And that's exactly, in my opinion, what is happening now. I'm really appreciative of this, by the way. I'm going to mention it here. I don't know if he'll like me to say this, but Rich Higgins, who was on the former National Security Council staff, and he was fired by McMaster for pointing out the problems with the Muslim Brotherhood, etc. He was kind enough to actually contact me. And so we have a little discussion going on the DM. Now, I have to tell you, I've read some of his work, as I mentioned the other day. He's worlds ahead of me. I'm not going to pretend like he isn't, because he is, okay? And I have a lot of respect for the way he presents things and what he does. That doesn't mean that I have to agree with him on everything, but the fact of the matter is I do, with a couple of exceptions. And I get the feeling... and I might be wrong about this. I get the feeling like he's been putting out some things here lately about, recon. We're doing a recon, and here's the report back. This is the battle damage assessment. Really cool stuff. I really understand that kind of talk. But I can't agree that we're actually damaging the other side. Yeah, they're making fools of themselves. But ladies and gentlemen, the people that they pander to, who unfortunately are damn near half the country now, they're fools anyway. All they care about is their power. All they care about is their debauchery, their debasing human beings and of their pleasures. That's all. Remember, even the scripture says, in those days they will be lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, right? And I know some people don't like me quoting scripture, but it's just so obvious. I mean, where I am right now, I'm in central Washington, not far from Mount Rainier, as I told you, and I am appalled at what I see everywhere. And it's not just here. I mean, I travel a lot, and I see it's mostly in the democratically held areas, guaranteed, but it still permeates everything. It is a debasement of humankind that is continuing. And I'm not saying Trump can fix it. I'm not even saying he should under the present circumstances, even though that's kind of what he said he was going to do. Although, again, I don't see his actions meeting his rhetoric. I just don't. So that's where Rich and I would probably have some disagreement. Same thing, I have that same disagreement with Dan Bongino probably, and probably a number of other people. Yes, there are those who are saying Trump needs to act. Where are the arrests? Lionel, he just said it the other day. The country's down. We're done. He might want to backtrack on that a little bit. Okay, that's usually what happens. I'm not backtracking on it. It is not going to get fixed unless and it probably never will be fixed. It will never be fixed the way it needs to. But we are not going to be able to save what's left of liberty. Let's put it that way. I'm not even saying the country. Saving what's left of liberty across this from sea to shining sea, unless some consequences are met by the people who are doing these horrible things. This is not a political fight. As a matter of fact, one of the things Rich said to me was that the technique that Trump is doing politically is that while it may not be effective, it's probably the best thing to do right now. Well, no, I don't agree with that. They've been arresting conservatives, Christians, Second Amendment supporters, gun owners, etc., ranchers, the real Americana. They've been arresting those people who've stood up for liberty. They've been arresting those people and jailing them, ladies and gentlemen. It's not too far down the road before they start killing them in the streets, coming to their homes. And Trump does nothing. Barr is still talking about spring, summer before Durham actually does anything. And by then it might be too late. Is Trump going to be able to get through this impeachment? Well, Mark Levin was talking this, I guess it was last night actually, about part of the reason why they did this impeachment is so that they can blame the impeachment on not voting on anything now for the rest of his term. And if he does pull off winning the next election, they will still use it as a reason not to vote for anything. In other words, we're not just at a stalemate, we're at a standstill. And the only thing that will dislodge this, and I'm not saying it isn't a dangerous situation, but he must go after these traitors, these seditionists, these criminals. And he has to stop allowing his DOJ to go after Flynn, Stone, Assange, the ranchers like the Bundys. And you've heard me say this, but don't you understand? And he's worried about the political capital. He's lost it anyway. These rallies and things, he's preaching to the choir. That information isn't getting out to the other, 70%, 60% of the country. Virginia, as BCP, Black Conservative Patriot, pointed out last night, is a flashpoint. Now, it could just be a beta test and that the Democrat governor and legislators will back off because they're actually listening to handlers above them. That's actually how this communist thing goes. They're not necessarily directly, but at least under the table. So if in fact under the Virginia Constitution, if you're looking at Chris Ann Hall and some other people, under the Virginia Constitution, they can form militias in that state. And it's in the Constitution, and especially underneath the sheriffs, which I have said all along. Don't go out and act on your own. That's what they want you to do. No, you find competent authority like those sheriffs in Virginia that are willing to stand up. And there are a few in Washington State and in other places, of course. If you try to act alone, believe me, the FBI and the DOJ, they're still corrupt. They're trying to stomp out liberty in the hearts and minds of the people. That's what they're doing. They are the police states. They're worse than the Stasi. They're worse than the KGB. Because they pretend, unlike the Stasi and the KGB, who told you what they are, the FBI and the DOJ, even under Bill Barr today, pretends to be one thing when in reality they're something else. And the KGB didn't even do that. The communist Chinese secret police don't do that. They let you know that the state is God. End of story. So that's what we're dealing with. So what is my concern? What do I think the status of our country is? Unless we have the guts to go after the evil and to throw it out of our midst, we're going to reap a whirlwind. Because you don't even have to think about God. Just think about cause and effect. If you allow evil to exist amongst you, you get punished as well. Are they evil? Absolutely. 100% they are evil. Called them Democrats. I've called them leftist Marxists. I've called them other names, but yeah, they are communists. That's exactly what they are, and they've had 30 plus years to take over our institutions. Does that make it right? No, but it makes it critical. It means that in fact we have a clear and present danger, and our leaders don't act to counter it. They think that this political bantering back and forth and showing what they're like is going to be sufficient for the people to be able to stand it. No, they aren't. And I'm telling you, I can see it. The DOD is slipping further away from Trump every day. Remember, I told you, a coup that's supported by the military, it doesn't have to be the whole military, and it usually is not. I told you to go watch Valkyrie as an example with Tom Cruise. That coup failed. But the principle is the same. You can do it with a few key people in a few key places. You can control almost the entire military by doing that. And that's what's happening. You think the National Guard's going to stand up for you? The only way Trump can secure the true loyalty of the military is to be a commander and lead and stop waffling. Stop doing this 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. That, as I explained the other day in a live stream, that is something that the military does not like. As a matter of fact, that alone could cause them, and it maybe is the situation, cause them to decide that they want to assist in the coup. And they are assisting. I don't care what anybody says. So that's what my take is. The Virginians will stand up. It's pretty obvious right now. Let's say that the governor and the legislature are told by whomever their handlers are, just go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and start the conflict in Virginia. Then Washington State will join in, and their government will do it. California, obviously. New York, which is already well down that road. Illinois, etc., etc., etc. What's the end result? Well, yeah, they'll probably call out the military to try to bring in order. And then how are you going to trust them? They're going to be helping the order of the communists. Do you understand? They might not like it. All you've got to do, how do you know what they're going to do, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, I know things have changed. But how do you know what they're going to do? By past actions. Look at what happened in New Orleans after the hurricane down there, and they came in and they took all of the weapons. Did the National Guard say, no, we're here to protect these people and their rights? No. They listened to the unconstitutional orders of their leaders. I'm telling you. There might be small pockets of resistance in the military that will break away, but I don't think most Americans have, even in the military, have the guts to do that. You know, in the few minor things that I stood up against in the military, the few minor things that I did, it brought a whirlwind of trouble. You really don't know my history that well. You think you do because of what you find online about me. But that doesn't tell the story the way it really happened. It doesn't give you the entire big picture. I have gone through experiences that tell me what's happening and how these people think and what they're up to. Now, I didn't have to just read it in books. I've seen it on the ground. And I'm telling you that if Barr isn't serious, I think Trump is serious, but then I don't know. Like I said, he pushed the red flag law things. He walked right into that trap and gave them the reason that they could move forward on the things they're doing now. That was Trump. I don't care what anybody says. That was Trump that caused that. And the evil side saw his weakness and his inability to have powerful moral principles in his gut, and they took advantage of it. He's not a leader to the commanders in the military. That's not how they view him. Oh, there are a few, that'll say they are. But I'm telling you, those flag officers at the top, as I've said all along, cannot be trusted. They are there because they made it through the Obama purges. And Obama's a communist. End of story. So that's where I am. the very nice lady who asked me what I think the status of our country is, that's what it is. And this impeachment is a very serious thing. You know, they're trying to slough it off like, you know, oh, big deal. He's going to be acquitted, or or acquitted in the Senate. You don't understand what they're doing. They don't need a Senate. And we just Pelosi just proved my point. She says she's not going to send the articles of impeachment to the Senate until they guarantee the House that they're going to have a fair trial. That's not her job. Now, there are those that are saying that Mitch McConnell can go ahead even though the articles of impeachment aren't being, pardon me, it's the coffee again, aren't being delivered to the Senate, and they can go ahead and hold the trial and do what they're going to do. Well, the point is that this is never going to end. It's never going to end. As Lionel said, the only thing that's going to send shockwaves through the Democrat communists, the liberal leftists, Marxists, the liberal establishment, and the communist establishment, let's just say it the way it is, the Soros-backed subversives, the only thing that is going to send shockwaves through them is if Trump collars somebody, and he should have done it a long time ago, but I called it, and I said last week that if he didn't have arrests, was it last week or week before, if there were no arrests, that we've basically sealed our fate. Barr says these things take time. Really? Well, hell, you know, if you look at what happened under the Russia investigation under Mueller, they were basically indicting people within 30 to 60 days of taking the investigation over. They freaking sent a SWAT team after a 60. How old was Roger Stone? 67, 68, something like that. Sent a SWAT team that you would send after a drug lord. Is this what the country wants? You think this is theater? You think this is fun? You think, I keep hearing people say, oh, go get your popcorn. Go get your popcorn, which, by the way, isn't good for you. We'll talk about that tonight. Popcorn? You're going to be told to sit and watch the show and eat your popcorn. No, Owen Schroyer had it right. Getting out and doing something. Again, I'm, you know, people say, well, Roy, you shouldn't be finding any fault with Owen Schroyer. Look at the things you've done. Yeah, no, I understand. We all picked what hill we're going to die on. I understand that. But I do have a thing about parliamentary procedure, you know. But anyway, what he did was very brave, and he was right. Now, other people have done it. You know, the Virginians are standing up with the help, though, of competent authority, those sheriffs who the governor and legislature say that they're going to send the National Guard to arrest. Well, that ought to be interesting. People ask me, are you going to go to Virginia, Roy, and help out? And whoa. Sometimes we have to fight our own battles because the local battles will matter. Local battles are going to happen everywhere, okay? Yes, sending people to help the Virginians if this thing kicks off from the local states there might be a good thing, but I'm not traveling all the way across the country to do that. I'm going to watch what's happening in my own area, and I kind of explained that the other day. We need to keep our local authorities in line, okay? That's going to be hard enough. And if we get the people who are decent, who abandon these areas to go help somewhere else, it's like sending our military over to Afghanistan. Who's protecting us here if this thing goes up? If we could even trust the military, which again, I'm not talking about the soldiers. They'd want to, probably by and large. But go see Valkyrie and see how this thing works. All of this that they're doing to Trump and to conservatives across the spectrum, to liberty lovers, is to give cover for what they're doing so that people won't act. The trigger pullers that they do have can do these things, and the others who are watching in the background, be they, you know, some staff sergeant or buck sergeant in an MP unit or infantry unit somewhere, they're not gonna do anything because their commanders are not letting them do it, number one. Number two, they're being told that, you know, these people are communists or Russian agents. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. This thing is a hoax. We have people that love and make lies. We have an immoral leadership. We have an immoral country. Am I saying that our principles are wrong, that our principles are bad? No. But who listens? Who obeys? Who follows the principles that were laid down in, I'm going to say in the Bible, okay, decent moral principles? And who follows the Constitution? Not really anybody. The FISA court's not even technically shouldn't exist. And I'm not saying they can't make a FISA court. I'm saying that it doesn't operate on Fourth Amendment principles. Not really. So it's illegitimate. The FISA court, that should be disbanded right now. Collier has proven that she was unwilling to take action 2 years ago. And why? Because she's part of the coup. Probably Justice Roberts is too, and I'm not so sure I'd even trust Gorsuch or Kavanaugh at this point. And I know that's going to be heretical. I haven't been impressed with Supreme Court decisions lately. Right now, because of what the Virginia legislature and governor are doing, President Trump should send military forces in there. First the marshals, threaten them with arrest for violating the people of the state, their constitutional rights, their God-given constitutionally protected rights. And if that fails to do it, send in the military and arrest them all under the Insurrection Act, or at least violation of the people's civil rights. He hasn't got the guts. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, he doesn't. He just let himself get walked over by the Democrat communists. And I was proud of the way the Republicans stood up for him. I was proud of that. But it's not enough. So, at any rate, that's my take on things. And I think we're in a lot of trouble. You better be getting yourselves ready. Trump is not acting. And 4 months from now, in April, they were saying late spring, early summer, so we're actually talking, April, maybe at the earliest, if Barr is honest about this timetable. The entire country might be sick and tired of this coup thing, of the impeachment process, of what the Democrat communists are doing, okay? They might get tired of it. But that's not enough to stop it. The ballot box isn't going to be the answer. I'm sorry, it just isn't. Arrests have to be made by the people that have been in this coup, that have committed these crimes and these seditions. If they are not arrested, it's just another example that equality under the law in the United States is a joke. And they're laughing about it. Hillary laughs about it every day. Obama, Holder, McCabe, Strzok, Page, Comey, Brennan, Clapper. And I could name a whole lot of other names. So there is only one answer here, and that's arrests of these people, to send shockwaves through them and know that we're serious. And ladies and gentlemen, every day that goes by that doesn't happen emboldens the criminals, the seditionists, and the traitors, the communists. It's come out that Comey followed, I guess he considered a communist educator or philosopher his mentor. Have you seen that? I haven't done that research. I'm counting on somebody else. Let me read this to you. This was forwarded to me from Rich Higgins, and it's from a Diana West, who apparently works for, I'm not sure. I'll look it up in a minute. Anyway, she goes by Diana West. I will go ahead and look at what she is here. Oh, that's great. Well, it won't load. Let me just read you the tweet. She's answering about what these communists are doing and that they've gotten power. And this is what she says about what they're doing, taking over the government and taking over institutions and forcing these debased, anti-human things upon us that are counter to the personal law of liberty. She says, yes, and carried out with coercive state power, they have achieved gaining the power of the state, which means along with a lot of other things, the monopoly of force. And that's what they're trying to do with these. And Trump, again, gave him the green light to go forward on this. Damn him. He cannot use the Bill of Rights to negotiate his political capital. I'm sorry, I got interrupted again. Let me read it again. Yes, and carried out with coercive state power. Comey could hardly be more radical. Steele was a confirmed socialist. Nellie Orr, an apologist for Stalin. Brennan voted for the CP, the Communist Party of the United States of America. And then she says, do we detect a pattern? In another part of this, she shows that Comey, I think the guy's name was Nuller, Nueller, something like that, was a communist that he followed. In other words, Comey is a communist. So where was the FBI in protecting us from these people infiltrating our government? And now, as Rich Higgins points out, the FBI is doing the same thing, allowing the Muslim Brotherhood to take over, which is really the same situation. Why is this happening? Because that's the nature of the government at this point. It's so saturated with these people that they consider that to be the new status quo, and if it isn't, they're going to make it such. That's what we're up against. And they're willing to not only steal your children and your property, but they're willing to kill you. Do you understand? This is Stalinist type stuff that happened in Russia. He killed, what, 30, 40, 50 million of his own people, mostly Ukrainians? Starved them to death, shot them. Look at what Mao Zedong did in the communist Chinese areas. That is what they're willing to do here. Bill Ayers talked about it, the Weather Underground, in the 1960s and 70s. And you don't think that that's not their plan still? Ladies and gentlemen, this has been on the boilerplate since the mid-1800s, in case you didn't know. Let me read a couple of other things here that I think are important. I pointed out the other day that this Collier, Judge Collier, had the information that she pretends like she just found out about from the IG. She actually found out about it from Devin Nunes. Here is the memo where Devin Nunes signs it. And he talks about it right there, giving her all the information. And she did nothing. Nobody on the court did anything. Rich Higgins, Dan Bongino wrote something, and I like Dan. Don't misunderstand. I consider him a patriot, despite this fight between him and Lee Stranahan, who I also consider a patriot, even though he works for the Russia Times, or Russia Today rather. Around, he works for Sputnik, actually, which is kind of around the block, and people say he's a Russian agent. No, they just happen to be the people that paid him. And frankly, I trust the Russians more than I do our own MSM. Dan Bongino wrote this, and it's only a partial. I've only got a partial tweet from him here. He says, "You are watching," this is Dan Bongino, "you are watching in live time the single dumbest act of political suicide in modern times." Dumbest act, Dan? Do you not understand what you're up against here? This is why I've said Dan was a great Secret Service agent and a great cop, but he apparently doesn't have any military training or intelligence training. And if he has intelligence training, it's very narrow. And he certainly has no military training, and I wonder about his understanding of history. No, this isn't a dumbest act. This is propaganda in motion. This is kinetic propaganda that moves towards kinetic action, justifies it. So he's off, and I'll show you that in a minute. So let me read that to you again. He says, "You are watching in live time the single dumbest act of political suicide in modern history. This is assuredly a political party fully owned and occupied by morons. By morons? This class of clowns and jokers will be laughed at in history." Dan, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. They're not moronic. They know exactly what they're doing, and you're underestimating the enemy. Here's what Rich Higgins says. He's writing back to Dan Bongino, and he says, "No," in caps and an exclamation mark. "They aren't owned by morons. The Democrat socialists are owned by communists." What have I been saying? This is not hyperbole or speculation. They are purposely tearing the country apart. This is the man that McMaster fired because he wrote the truth about the Muslim Brotherhood and the infiltration of the Islamicists into our constitutional republic. And because he told the truth, they got rid of him. I've been where well, I was never in the NSC, but I've been in the same situation where I've said these things and I get the punishment for it. Let's read another one. Anthony Schaefer, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer. There's a gentleman in Virginia that stands up to the legislature and talks about the importance of the Second Amendment and that they can't come after it like this, and that there will be the people will answer back for this travesty and this tyranny. Listen to what Tony Schaefer says here. A clear, this is talking about this gentleman who gave this 2 or 3 minute talk to the Virginia legislature. A clear, unemotional, cogent speech on the fact that we as Virginians have both a Virginia state constitution and federal law on our side. Do you think the communists care? Pelosi's violating the Constitution every day. They violate the Constitution and then they say that they talk about the rule of law, and what they mean is by what they say the rule of law is not what it really is. But that fools a lot of people. The governor of Virginia proposed gun confiscation and restriction laws are illegal. Suffolk, Virginia, Second Amendment sanctuary gun rights speech. Anthony Schaefer knows what's going on. I'm not going to get into the FISA stuff and General Flynn. That gets pretty deep right now, but I think you all know where you are. Now, this is from The Last Refuge. I'm going to read this one to you. I want to know what the hell Bill Barr is really up to. Again, I told you, he's not for the Second Amendment. He's not for the Fourth. What he did at Ruby Ridge, his cleanup of all the other crappy shit he's been involved in, okay? I want to read this to you. This is from The Last Refuge. They're also known as the Conservative Treehouse on the web. Quote, this is from The Last Refuge. They're a group of, they call themselves misfits. They're obviously a group of former intel people or legal people that understand what's going on. Very similar to what Gigi Sims does on Twitter, what Nancy Morgan Hart on Headlines with a Voice does, Technofog, John W. Huber, not the real one, the guy that writes under that pseudonym. Okay, all these people understand this stuff. So let me read to you what he says, and then you wonder why I say what I say. In criminal law, seminal jurist William Blackstone said, "It is better that 10 guilty persons escape than 1 innocent suffer." Unquote. Then he goes on and he says, in A.G. Barr's modern interpretation, quote, "It is better that 1 innocent man suffer than have guilty institutions be discovered." And you don't have to, have a discussion about that. It's prima facie. You've got them. Roger Stone, Assange, General Flynn, the Bundys, who stood up against the machine that pretends to be the justice system, including the FBI and then the regulatory agencies like BLM, when they were actually working for and in behalf of, whether those people on the ground in Bundy, in the Bundy Ranch area in Bunkerville knew it or not. They were working for and in behalf of thieves at the highest levels of government and industry, principally Hillary Clinton, Eric Holder, Obama, and Harry Reid. And Barr lets these things go forward. You think he understands what justice is? Oh, he's got to be careful of his political capital? That's cowardice, ladies and gentlemen, or complicit, or they're complicit. Mike Cernovich. The 302s were altered. Undisclosed edits were made. This is talking about the Flynn situation where Lisa Page and this Kleinsmith, who weren't the only people doing this, by the way. This was all through the FBI, even though they're trying to talk their way out of it now. The FBI is not good. There aren't 99% good people in the FBI. The whole thing is corrupt because the institution is corrupt. The 302s were altered, undisclosed. Edits were made. Sullivan took DOJ at its word. No, Sullivan was complicit. So you're wrong there, Mike. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt. This is a sign that the FISA abuse was anything but, and instead a normal procedure for how the judicial system in D.C. really works. Judge Sullivan doesn't care. No judge does. So he actually did say it. Last refuge again. By withholding the declassification material, particularly the Susan Rice redacted memo to file and redacted text messages, Attorney General William Barr has built the gallows upon which Flynn will hang. I could do some more here, but I quoted this from Rich Higgins the other day again. Do you really think that this entire series of events could have taken place without Rhino and GOP tacit acceptance? Why would you trust them now? And then I want to read off a partial list of the secret society within the FBI and the DOJ, the people that have proven what they're really about. And apparently they have some type of a loyalty to each other. They've sworn an oath to each other. You think I'm not pulling the wool over your eyes on this. I'm not crapping on you. Let me read off this list. And it's not a total list, but you'll recognize the names. Lisa Page is lying on Rachel Maddow. She's a demon. I'm sorry, she is. Which hurts me. I don't like women to go down that road, but it's obvious. Andy McCabe, Carl Gaddis, Peter Strzok, Bill Priestap, Jonathan Moffa, Mike McGarity, Charles Cable, Aaron Rouse. He was the Las Vegas special agent in charge over the situation covering up the Harvest 91 Festival massacre. Lisa Page, James Baker, James Rybicki, Charles McConigal, and there are others. Paul Sperry. He's an independent reporter. He's written for a number of places. I forget who he's actually in with right now, but this is what he wrote. This Spygate scandal is so monstrous, so widespread, touching the FBI, the DOJ, the Department of State, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Defense, the NSC, the National Security Council, the CIA, the NSC, that it can only be attacked by Durham as a criminal conspiracy. Okay? What is he saying? It can't be prosecuted piecemeal, and I'm going to disagree with him on that, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Does Durham have the staffing, resources, and money? I don't think he does. I don't think Barr has provided Durham with all the resources that he would need to attack this as a big conspiracy, because Barr wants to save the institutions. Or does this need special counsel? Now, why does he say that Durham has to attack it as a criminal conspiracy, not a piecemeal prosecution? Look, that does not negate the necessity right now of arresting several people on lesser charges if necessary. That doesn't mean that you can't add charges later as the investigation proceeds, keeping in mind the statute of limitations, which doesn't exist for treason. I'm not sure it even exists for sedition, but some of the other criminal things there are statutes of limitations for, and we can't wait any longer. So basically he's saying that Durham, he doubts that Durham has been given the actual resources to go after the deep state in all of its areas. So is it wise then to just pick out a few of the leaders and to take them down? That's not going to fix this, ladies and gentlemen, unless other things are put into place to prohibit what's happened in the past. And then you see what they do there. In the FISA court, there were prohibitions, there were guidelines, there were procedures, and they violated them, and the court didn't do anything to stop it, pretending like they didn't know. Well, they did know 2 years ago, and they still didn't do anything, which is prima facie evidence that they're part of the problem. They are conspirators as well. Then I'll leave it at this one here. There's a Colonel Douglas McGregor, full colonel, who has written some information on the, he's kind of an historian. He was on Tucker Carlson a while back, and he was talking about the problems with the cover-up by the general officers of the Afghanistan war and the lies that are coming out of the DOD, the Pentagon, the military-industrial complex, and even the White House. And this was my answer to that. I texted this to them. A confirmation that this is me talking, a confirmation that all I have said about military flag officers, including General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is true. Evil personified. Ladies and gentlemen, we are being sold out. I told you, the military leaders would not have jumped ship, the ones that have openly, and there are a lot that have not openly jumped ship, but they have, in their minds and in their actions. They wouldn't jump ship unless they saw that this was something that was very likely to succeed, this coup, I mean. President Trump cannot play this game any longer. Do I have some dislike for President Trump? I dislike the fact that he's not acting. I dislike the fact that he's not Jesus Christ. He's not supposed to sit there and actually that saying, if you get struck on one cheek, turn to them the other also. You totally misunderstand people that read that. You totally misunderstand the euphemism of the time of what that meant. It didn't mean that you can just sit there and take abuse. That's not what it was talking about. Be as wise as a serpent, as harmless as a dove. You don't even know what that means. And I don't mean to attack Christians, okay? It's just that you've been schooled in how to interpret these things, and you don't take the time to go back and look what they really meant in the time that they were written. It's like, like I've said before, 1,000 years from now, people will read, somebody will say, today he'll write down, has a cat got your tongue? Meaning you can't talk. And 1,000 years from now, we're going to look at that and say, wow, did that mean that that must mean that the cats were grabbing somebody's tongue. No, it's a euphemism. And they've used our language, they've used our traditions against us. I'm going to tell you this, okay? Don't forget the scripture that says, and I know people say, well, he's talking about the word. No. If you own 2 cloaks, sell one and buy a sword. These have 2 meanings. Yes, the sword of the mouth that cuts both ways. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. But it was also saying you need to be armed to protect yourselves. Jesus Christ was not a pacifist. So that's my presentation for the morning. We've got some other things we got to get ready for. I wanted to take some chat, but I've been yakking too long. But now I think you should know, the lady who was kind enough to ask me to do this, where I stand on what's happening. This is an awful situation, but you've got to be careful. You can't take action without being underneath competent authority. I'm not saying that you can't involve yourselves in self-defense. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you won't stand a chance if you do it wrong. Okay, I'd go through chat, and I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to do that because I really do have to get some other things done. I wasn't planning on doing this morning, but I felt like I owed it to the lady who asked, and to you all, really. Okay. Do I think that Trump, I've waffled on Trump for a long time, and I admit that. I praise him when he does well, and I call him out when I think he hasn't. And I really can't read him. All I can see is what he does. I don't care what he says. I care what he does. And that track record, ladies and gentlemen, other than the economic things and a few others, it's like his appointments of these Supreme Court justices. Do you realize that all that can be overturned if this impeachment succeeds? Or certainly by the next election if he doesn't win, or after that. None of this is a fix because the hearts and minds of the people don't know what the sound of the trumpet is. It's an unsure sound from the trumpet, so they don't know what to do. That's scriptural too. Trump says unsure messages. His flags are confused. He's not luring the enemy in so he can destroy them in an envelopment. No, they're enveloping him and us. That's what's happening. Okay, that's enough for the day. Thanks everybody for coming. Again, pardon me that I'm not going to get into chat. I was planning to see. I even have my coffee, like I like to do. I went out to breakfast this morning actually, and had coffee out there, but I missed my caramel cream. Okay, so we are planning on doing a nightcap tonight at 8:30 Mountain Time, and we will talk about what's going on with my weight loss. There are actually a number of factors, but I think we can talk about those. Most of it's because I really had to lose the weight for a number of reasons, and we'll talk about that tonight. All right? Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming, and we'll see you tonight if you're up to it, 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time. All right? And I guess that's it for now. We'll see you next time out here.